You're watching VinylicPumaGaming. What's up, guys? So recently I've been remaking a lot of the old survival guides on my channel. I figured that since I remade the best and worst weapons for survival mode videos, it might also be time to update you guys on armor for survival mode. A couple things before we get into this video. This video is taking into account all of the released DLC for Fallout 4 so far, and is current up to the Nuka World DLC if you're watching this in the future, and somehow Bethesda decides they're going to release more DLC. The best armor for survival mode is ultimately going to be based around your build and what weapons you use. In some cases, power armor is not going to be the best choice, and vice versa. Same thing goes with regular armor. I also want to mention that this list is mostly taking non-unique and non-legendary armors into account. You could probably find legendary variants of certain armors that may be superior to what I'm going over here, so just keep that in mind. I also just want to say that I'm going to also remain as impartial as I can be, but I will disclose that I am biased towards using power armor for some reasons that I'm going to discuss shortly. So with all of that out of the way, let's go ahead and discuss power armor's advantages and disadvantages. Without a doubt, the biggest advantage of power armor in survival mode is damage resistance. Not having enough damage resistance can get you killed a lot and makes your player character very squishy. You'll find that even T45 armor is superior to most non-power armors that you will find early on in your playthrough. Another advantage is that you can equip mods to each piece of power armor. So, for example, you can equip the motion-assisted servos, which improves your character's strength, and the internal database boosts intelligence and can affect the rate at which you gain experience. Keep in mind, too, there's also the calibrated shocks, which can also increase your carry weight. Another big advantage of power armor is that it doesn't add any additional weight while equipped. The weight of each power armor piece is transferred to the power armor frame and not your character, and the same cannot be said of regular armor. While I do like power armor, it does have its problems. One of those problems is repair costs, especially on the T60 and X01 models of power armor, as you need a lot of relatively uncommon resources for repairs. I also recommend that you avoid water, as you can't swim with power armor equipped, and you also can't exit your power armor if you get stuck, or especially if you get stuck in water too. If you are in Dunwich borers, be careful while in power armor. It's also worth mentioning that there aren't very many power armors with legendary effects. And for melee characters, you may find that 6 non-power armor pieces, along with something like the army fatigues with the ballistic weave mod, may yield superior results when it comes to boosting your strength stat. Now, as far as the power armor types that I would recommend, there's really only 2, but I will go ahead here and discuss the third option, which is the T60 armor. Provided that you don't own any of the DLC for Fallout 4, T60 armor is really the only armor with several unique power armor pieces that contain legendary armor effects. If you have the Automatron DLC, you can deck your character out in a full suit of T60 where each piece has a legendary effect. The T60 Tesla armor pieces from Automatron are really ideal, especially if you plan on using energy weapons or even plasma weapons. T60 is also very easy to acquire too, as you only need to join the Brotherhood of Steel and become a knight within the organization. That said, if you don't plan on siding with the Brotherhood of Steel, T60 in my opinion isn't really even worth it. Most of the unique armor pieces are obtained through Brotherhood side quests, and if you don't plan on siding with the Brotherhood at all, I would recommend that you skip on T60 armor. I should also mention that while repair costs for T60 are lower than X01, you can quickly go through aluminum and plastic every time you need repairs. Aluminum and plastic can be hard to find in the right quantities for repairs as well. And now I'm going to get into what I would consider the viable choices for power armor. And of course, the second option here, and really I think it's the best option in my opinion, is going to be T51 armor. And the main reason I recommend T51 is solely for the reasonable repair costs. Without a doubt, this is the biggest advantage of T51 armor, as it is the best armor available to you that only requires steel to repair. Plus, steel is relatively common, and certain settlements have several different cars that you can scrap for parts. T51 can also be acquired relatively early on in the game as well. There are also several level-independent locations where the armor can appear, but otherwise, T51 can usually be found above level 14. This may be superfluous to some degree, but T51 has the most power armor paints available for it, especially once you add in Fallout 4's DLCs. Keep in mind that you're more likely to get a power armor paint that boosts the attribute that you want with T51 armor. And if you have the Nuka World DLC, you can get the Nuka T51, which boosts your agility by 3. And this may be very useful for players that regularly make use of VATs. All this said, T51 isn't without its flaws. While T51 is good, T60 and XO1 are capable of providing better resistances and have higher durability. To give you some idea, T51F is on par with T60D and XO1 Mark II. So if you are looking for very high resistances, skip on T51 armor. Another problem is that the T51 armor has only one unique piece with a legendary effect, and that is the piezonucleic armor. In my personal opinion, while this is better than no legendary effects, the legendary effect on offer here isn't that great in my opinion. Okay, so our first option should be pretty obvious, and that is going to be the XO1 armor. This is because XO1 has superior stats when compared to all of the other armors in the game, and you're getting the best resistances and armor durability on offer here. Once you hit level 28, you should be able to regularly come across leveled sets of XO1, which is pretty nice. Now, while this is fairly far on into the game, it's relatively early considering that most of the DLC, like Far Harbor or Nuka World, recommends that you at least be level 30 before you even start. Speaking of Nuka World, there is a unique Quantum XO1 power armor that appears in that DLC, and it's actually quite good as it boosts action point refresh speed. XO1 armor does have its drawbacks though. Of all of the power armors, XO1 has the highest repair costs. If you thought the T60 was bad, XO1 is worse. Not only do you need more steel and aluminum to make repairs, but you also need copper as well. There are also no unique pieces of XO1 armor, unless you include the unique quantum paint from Nuka World. And you may also find that the variety of power armor paints on XO1 is lacking as well, with the only real exceptional one being the Institute paint, in my opinion. Alright, so just to simplify everything I just discussed, if you care about legendary effects, you like the Brotherhood, and don't mind the repair costs, go with the T60 armor. If you care about low repair costs, you want the overall most economical option, and you want to look cool, go with the T51 armor. If you want the best defenses, armor HP, and you can afford the high repair costs, go with the XO1 armor. Now that we've wrapped up power armor, let's discuss regular armor and its advantages and disadvantages. So regular armor pieces in particular can spawn with legendary effects, and because of this, you can match and sometimes even exceed the potential of power armor. Provided that you've sided with the Railroad or you just have good relations with them, certain pieces of regular apparel can have the Ballistic Weave mod applied, and that can greatly boost resistances. Otherwise, regular armor is more convenient. Unlike power armor, you can swim in regular armor. Stealth and successful sneak attacks are easier in regular armor. Regular armor never requires repairs or fusion cores to operate, and you can use unarmed weapons like the Power Fist, where you can't do that with power armor. While there are a lot of good advantages, regular armor has a lot of disadvantages. The biggest problem with regular armor is weight. Power armor's weight is transferred to the frame, while regular armor transfers the weight onto your character. In some cases, regular armor can also weigh more than power armor, which is crazy to think about. The best regular armors can't match the pure damage resistance power armor provides. Especially really early on in the game, regular armor can make your character very squishy, especially up against weapons with high rates of fire like miniguns. And if you for some reason have contracted the weakness illness in particular, not using power armor can be extremely dangerous. Not only are you resisting less damage, but you also take 20% more damage. Getting a crippled limb is also very bad while using regular armor, especially if you are far enough away from a bed or you're out of stim packs. Even with stim packs, if you decide to use one, your immunity gets screwed up and you're suddenly more prone to getting sick, which then requires you to use even more healing items. While you can get crippled in power armor, it doesn't affect you quite as much. Now, unlike the last video, I am going to go over what I think are the best items to use Ballistic Weave on. In my mind, you're going to want armor or apparel that allows you to perform the Ballistic Weave as well as allowing you to equip all 6 regular armor pieces. It's going to depend on your build, but you'll find that most apparel also boosts certain special stats. I would recommend that if you're just using guns and no melee at all, go with the military fatigues if you can find them. While we are on the subject of Ballistic Weave, there are 4 hats that can be Ballistic Weaved. What you will find is that when it comes to pure resistance, Ballistic Weave hats are the way to go. The best helmets can't really compete with 100 damage and energy resistance for the helmet. The kicker is that you need to be on good enough terms with the railroad in order to even craft Ballistic Weave, so there's that. And while we're on the subject of headwear, your best option for damage and energy resistance, if you don't have the Ballistic Weave ability, is going to be the Marine Armor helmet from Far Harbor. However, if you want specific legendary armor effects on your helmet, you may want to go ahead and try to find a legendary synth field helmet. Now, I'm going to go ahead and say that armor is mostly going to be up to you. It's going to depend on whether you want lighter armor or better resistances. Normally, I would have recommended Marine armor entirely. However, Nuka World's Raider Gang armors actually provide superior overall resistances. Just to give you guys the gist, the heavy pack armor is lighter than Marine armor with the similar but slightly superior resistance. The Operator Heavy and the Disciple Metal armor provide superior damage and energy resistance to Marine armor. However, both are heavier. Operator armor is more balanced, while Disciple Metal armor has skews towards having better energy resistance. Whatever armor you decide to use, make sure that you get the Ultra Light mod for it. Otherwise, they are going to be insanely heavy. If you want legendary effects and Marine armor, you can buy Recon Marine armor pieces in Far Harbor from various vendors. The effects on these are fairly good, plus you'll get a +2 to both damage and energy resistance for each piece, since each piece would have a legendary effect, making it only slightly inferior to the Raider Gang armor. If you want specific legendary effects, you're going to have to just get lucky. 6 pieces of Sentinel's armor will give you 90% damage reduction while standing still, which is really good. And 6 pieces of Fortifying armor boost the strength and endurance stats by 1 for each piece, and so on and so on. And you can get to really high amounts of strength just by having legendary armor effects on your armor pieces. To quickly sum up your choices for regular armor, I would highly recommend regular armor if you're joining the railroad and you want the ability to have Ballistic Weave. From there, it's going to depend on whether you want defense at a lower weight, what kinds of legendary effects you want, or if you want superior damage resistance without the drawbacks of using power armor. If it were me, I would recommend that you use the military fatigues, one of the ballistic hats, a pair of sunglasses, and then either a fully upgraded Nuka World Raider Gang armor or generic armor pieces with the legendary effects that you want. As I said earlier, the best armor for survival mode will mostly depend on your build and your playstyle. If you want something a bit tankier, go with power armor. If you want the best possible damage, you might want to consider regular armor. Ultimately, what I recommend that you do is you experiment with various armor types and find out what works best for you. Alright guys, that's going to pretty much wrap up this particular video. If you like this video, please be sure to leave a like, and just bear with me. I'm sorry I'm getting these videos up a lot later. Originally I tried to get my videos up by about like 1 or 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, but they've now been going up at like 5, 6, or even 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I've just had a lot going on, and just bear with me. I'm trying to get things back to normal. I've had a lot of stuff happen over these past couple weeks, but again, guys, like this video if you liked it. Take care, and I'll see y'all next time.